As a professional interpreter, rather like any other professional, there are boundaries to your job. For your information, let me list some of the things that an interpreter is not. An interpreter is not a social worker. To be a social worker is a very good thing, but if you want to be a social worker, go and train to be a social worker. As an interpreter, you should not be a social worker. An interpreter is not an advocate, is not a teacher, is not a confidant, not a chauffeur. You really ought not to be driving your member of the public around in your car. An interpreter is not a moneylender or a nursing assistant or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. An interpreter is not an advice worker. It is not the role of the interpreter to offer advice. An interpreter is not a babysitter, is not a benefit snoop, is not a police informer, is not a priest, is not an imam, is not a mother or father the client never had. As an interpreter, you are not a housing advice worker. You're not a community warden. You're not a spokesman or spokeswoman for every other person in the world who speaks the language of your client or shares their culture or religion. But an interpreter is a language professional. And that's certainly enough to be getting on with. So keep these boundaries in mind when you go out and work as an interpreter. They are very important.